Hello YouTube chess lovers and my friends, this is Gunjan here. Welcome to the 7th part of the dirty chess tricks. I'm continuing my coverage of tricky repruta against the classical response to the king's pawn opening. That is, let's say after e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, bishop to c4, and here we are looking at the move knight to f6, that is two knights defense. Here I propose that you should play the move d4, and we come to a conclusion that the best move here from the black perspective is the move e captures d4. Afterwards, white should castle on the king's side. In the last lecture I have covered the move bishop to c5, so if you haven't watched that, I have highlighted here in the annotations. In this lecture we are going to cover the move knight captures e4. The Morphy attack start with the move rook to e1. The main move here is d5, but in case if you are wondering what you should do after the move f5, then here is the answer. White should continue with the move bishop to g5, and after bishop to e7 just capture that bishop, and after queen captures bishop, white can capture this d pawn. And there are so many threats over here. White is threatening to capture on f5. There is a main threat is f3, and top of everything black cannot castle on the king's side. So all in all, it's a wonderful position for white, and that is the reason why at this point the main move is d5. After the move d5, white has this amazing piece sacrifice, that is bishop captures d5. So more or less black has to forcefully accept this sacrifice, and after this white has this move, that is knight to c3. For those of you who are sleeping, let me remind you that black cannot capture this knight, because after d capture c3 black will simply lose the queen. So that means black queen has to move somewhere. Now the amount of games I have played, I found out that mainly 3 moves has been tried by the black queen. There are other moves, but they are very rare, and that's why I'm not including in this lecture. The first move I want to consider is the move queen to h5, which looks very logical, that if the white moves the knight, then black can swap up the queen. Here white will continue with the move knight captures e4, and you can already see that there is a discover attack looming which will nab the black queen, so black has to block the e file. There are 2 ways black can block the file. The first is bishop to e7. Afterwards white should continue with the move bishop to g5. Now if your opponent is not familiar with this position, he may be blundered moves such as f6, because white can simply take this pawn and black cannot recapture this pawn because the queen will drop. So the castle looks the first priority, but castle is a blunder move, and the correct answer from the white perspective is the move knight to g3. So we have the double hit to the bishop, and not only that, white is threatening to take the queen. So very obvious is when the queen moves, white will be a piece up. Now instead of bishop to e7, black can block the file with the move bishop to e6. Black's planning is very simple. Black wants to castle on the queen side, so accordingly white needs to stop that plan via the move bishop to g5. Now here the 3 moves has been tried. First, let me show you the aggressive move by the black, that is bishop to b4. So it has an idea of attacking the rook, but here white can sacrifice a pawn via the move c3. After bc and dc, black bishop has to move to the a5 square, and afterwards white will continue with the move queen to d2. Here 2 moves has been tried, both leads to instant disaster for black. In one game my opponent played the move bishop to b6, but to his horror he find out that knight to g3 and the black queen is a goner. If the queen goes to the g4, then the rook to e4 will trap the baby, and if the queen goes to the g6, then knight to h4 will do the same. So it's very obvious that at this point the main move is the castle, but after the castle still black loses because of the move knight to g3. Once again the queen is trapped, so queen has to go to the g6 square, and when white played the move knight to h4, black has this idea, that is bishop captures c3. So counter-attacking the white queen, and if the queen captures bishop, then white's own bishop will drop. So here white will continue the move queen to e3. So black needs to follow the queen with the move bishop to d4. Afterwards, now there is a sequence of capturing happen. So here I capture the queen, my opponent recaptured the queen, and now I capture the rook, and after the sequence bishop captures and knight captures bishop, pawn captures knight, and rook captures. After the whole transaction, white is a clear exchange up. The second ugly move is f6, but you can already see there is something wrong in this move, and the way to exploit is knight captures f6, forking the king and a queen. So black has to accept this, and afterwards white will capture this bishop with a check. The most obvious response is king to d7. Afterwards white has this amazing shot, that is rook captures c6. And the funny part is black cannot capture either of the white piece. For example, if king captures rook, then the very simple knight captures d4 will nab the black queen. So that is not possible. And if the king goes to the c8 square, then rook captures f6, and white has saved all the pieces and emerge with a clear piece and a pawn up. Last but not least, if black plays the move h6, then white bishop has this amazing posting, that is on f6 square. Fortunately for white, black cannot capture this because there is a knight fork. Accordingly, two moves has been tried. In the first game, my opponent played the move bishop to e7, but after this I just captured this bishop, and after black recapture I captured the d pawn, which leads to the end game, which is a very good for white. In this game my opponent continued with the move queen captures queen, and after rook captures there's a threat of capturing the bishop and isolate the pawn. So my opponent dropped the bishop back to the d7, and now I once again hit the bishop and the b pawn via the move knight to c5. So my opponent again saved the pawn via the move bishop to c8, but after knight to b5 there is a no escape, because king cannot come to the d8 square. That means c pawn is dropping. There is a second alternative for the black here, that is to play the move queen to a5, which has an idea to capturing the bishop now, but here white can sacrifice the whole piece via the move knight captures d4. Let's see what happens if black accept this. So g captures f6, and very obviously it's knight captures f6 with a check. Now king cannot go to the d8 square because of the discover check, and black lost the queen, so the king has to come up. Afterwards I give you a few seconds. Can you find an amazing decoying move which will finish up the black? Okay, the move is b4, and it turns out that this is amazingly strong move. Let's see the consequences of different black moves. If queen captures b4, then the very simple is knight to d5, and black lose the queen. If knight captures b4, then white can capture this bishop, and the best move over here is king captures f6. Afterwards black king is in mating net via the move queen to d4 check. Of course king has to go to the g6 square. Afterwards white will simply snap up the rook. And the following continuation, which will illustrate how dangerous white attack is, my opponent continue with the move knight captures c2, so forking two rooks, but here white first of all give this check. So the only move left is king to f5, because if the king goes to the g5, then rook to e5 will nab the queen, so king f5 is forced. Afterwards white can give this check, which will gain the black knight, and if black becomes greedy and go for the knight capturing, then black king will be mated after rook to e4. The only move left is king to g5. Afterwards white has this silent killer move queen captures f7, and there is a mate in 3 maximum. Last but not least, one of my opponent try here queen to g5, but after this once again white can capture this bishop, and in this game my opponent captured with the f pawn, which leads to the instant finishing after queen to d7 check. The only move left is king captures f6. Afterwards, the black king dance will continue with the move rook captures e6. Let me show you the rest of the moves very quickly. The king fall on the floor after queen to h3. So those are some of the amazing tricks exist in queen to h5 line. Let me show you some good tricks in queen to a5 line. After queen to a5, white should continue with the move knight captures e4, and once again we are threatening a discover check, so black needs to block the check. Once again there are two moves. First we are looking at bishop to e7. After bishop to e7, white will continue with the move bishop to g5, and no need to mention the move f6 that leads to a disaster. So in this game my opponent tried the move bishop to e6. Afterwards I continue with the move bishop captures e7, and after knight captures e7 I just grab the d pawn, so which forced black to castle on the king side. Afterwards knight to c5 create a great difficulty for black because black cannot move the bishop, and in the game my opponent decided to counterattack with the move rook to d8, but he missed this move, that is knight captures b7, and white emerged with a superior position. So that's why the main move over here is bishop to e6. Afterwards there are two moves you can try, but before looking at them there is a one nasty trap that white need to aware, that white cannot capture the d4 pawn because black can simply capture this knight and white cannot recapture because the rook on e1 is hanging. So don't fall for this one. Instead of this, I'm suggesting that you can try two moves. The first move is bishop to d2, and after the logical move queen to d5, white can set up a nasty trap via the move bishop to g5. Now the most usual response from the black perspective is the move bishop to b4, attacking the white rook and planning to castle on the king side, but this can be made via the move c3. And at first sight it looks like black can simply capture this pawn, but in fact it's turned out as a blunder. Now I can play a super shot, that is knight to f6 check, bam. So black lost the queen. How? Let me show you. So very obvious response is g captures f6. Afterwards white can snap up this queen and that bishop is pinned, so black cannot recapture. The same story can be said if your opponent play moves such as bishop to c5, because now white has this second good move, that is c4. Once again d captures c3 is not possible because of the knight check, and black lose the queen once again. And if the queen goes to the f5 square, then the very obvious is knight to h4, and once again black lost the queen. If queen to g4, then f3 and g4 nab the queen, and if the queen goes to the e5 square, then f4 trap the queen forever. Now at this position, instead of bishop d2, white can also try the mainline stuff, that is knight e to g5, which has a merit of hitting the bishop. If black try to defend the bishop via the move queen to d5, then once again white has this amazing shot, that is knight captures f7. King captures f7 is force, and afterwards knight to g5 will not only regain the piece, but king has been misplaced. So after knight e to g5, the main move is to castle on the queen side. Afterwards white can regain the pawn back, and here the main move is bishop to d6. White should continue with the harassing the black rook via the move bishop to g5, and if rook to e8, then queen to e2 is exceptionally strong. So that's why the main move over here is rook to f8, which has a cunning idea to capturing the knight and then capturing the bishop. But here white can set another good trap via the move queen to e2, allowing rook to f3, because now white has this finishing shot, rook to e8 check. If rook captures, then the queen captures and black king will be mated, and if black block the check with the knight, then the very simple is rook captures rook, and two of the black pieces are hanging. The last move I want to consider is queen to d8. Afterwards, white should take this knight with a check, and once again the main move is bishop to e7. Afterwards, white can capture this d pawn. Now there are two moves has been tried. In the first, black captured the knight, white should capture with the rook, and now if the black blocks the file with the move bishop to d6, then he will lose the pawn after bishop to f4. So the following sequence is like this, and you can already see not only white is emerged with a clear pawn up, but black pieces are not ideally placed. In the second continuation, if black blocked the check with the bishop to d7, he run into the bigger problem, because now white can still continue with the move bishop to f4 and black cannot castle on the king side. So in one game my opponent tried this c6, and after knight to e4, queen to c8 and bishop to d6, he found that he doesn't have anything except c5. Here I continue with the move rook to d5, and he played the move bishop to e6, which will allow me to enter into the end game, which is exceptionally good for white. So you can see this, white emerged with a clear 2 pawns up and a far better position. The second move is castling on the king side. Once again white can play the move bishop to f4, and black is having a huge difficulty defending the c7. So for example, if knight captures d4, then the rook captures, and the same problem on the c7 occurs. And instead of that, if black plays the move bishop to d7, then white has this amazing shot, that is bishop captures c7. Queen has to recapture, and afterwards the following sequence will emerge white with a clear pawn up and a better position. So you can see yourself attacking queen and a bishop, so queen has to drop back. Now white will first of all capture this knight, which has a merit of hitting the queen, so bishop has to recapture, and now white knight will capture this bishop with a check, and when the king moves, knight will capture this bishop. And you can already see after this whole transaction, not only white emerged with a clear pawn up, but black pawns are shattered on the queen side. So I hope you enjoy this wonderful Morphy attack. You have the plenty of opportunities to trick your opponent along the different ways of the queen moves. I wish you best of luck for trying in your own game. Well, thank you for watching this video, and I'll meet you in my next lecture, that is Italian gambit against bishop to c5. Bye.